we're really trying to bridge the gap today between ad grants and search and paid Google ads and traffic and giving and year end and conversion. So I'll go ahead and first introduce our panelists. So we have Michelle Hurtado, head of Google Ad Grants Global. I'm very excited. Katie Green, the digital giving manager for the Trevor Project, and Blake Arata, who's director of traffic and conversion for Community Boost. And as we dive in, I wanted to just kind of open up to the room. So we're going to be talking ad grants, which is a spectrum, right? Like we can get really in the weeds tactically, which we certainly want to do, but then there's also kind of high-level strategy. But first, I mean, who here, like your organization has a Google Ad Grant currently active, enrolled? Okay, perfect. Most of the room. Who here, you know, you're spending consistently, it's going pretty well, a big part of your marketing mix? Okay. And raise your hand if you're directly responsible for your ad grant, that you manage it personally. Perfect, okay. Any other questions you guys have?
I mean, could we just hear like a couple things around the room of what you want to make sure you get out of the session? I want to get a little sense of temperature of the room, because everyone's in a different place. So maybe
burning things to hear on ad grants.
Thank you so much. So we're a nonprofit, and our ad is managed by pro bono consultant agency, and we're struggling to maximize the 10,000 grant. I think at most we've probably been able to use maybe 5, 6. So I wanted to learn how do I maximize that so that we have the biggest impact. Thank you.
that's a question on several's minds. One behind you.
Anything else you really want to get?
Hi, so basically, as the Google Ads Grant Manager for an organization that is a 501c3, but so basically politics comes into our work a lot, but we're not allowed to, we have to get verified as a political advertiser. And so I'm wondering how I go about initiating that verification process while reconciling our current Google ad account status, which was started as a personal rather than a business.
That is obviously a specific question. We will have a lot of one-on-one time at the end, and we'll try to save as much as possible for that. So, yeah. Go ahead.
My organization uses both a Google Ad Grant for our search marketing, which is handled by an outside agency, and then we have a second Google account for our display, like GDN advertising. And I'm curious if there's any insight in how we can make those two different ad accounts work better together.
Absolutely. All right, we'll definitely cover that. And then one more over here.
Hello, I work for K-Love Air One Radio, and I'm looking to see how we can utilize the grants in association with the paid, and we only have like peanuts for the paid, right? So we have like $5,000 a month that we utilize for all the campaigns.
All right, giving season puts that kind of extra onus on it. I hear you. Okay. Hi.
Sorry, I have a microphone over here. I guess I'm curious. We have the ad grants and we have our account set up, but do not have a teammate dedicated to spend time on it, nor a team that we've outsourced. So kind of minimum effort and maximum reward with using the grant.
All right, that gives a good flavor.
Yeah, very helpful. And again, so we're doing this session, then the larger presentation, and then we are also going to be offering as many one-to-one ad grant audits as we can for some of the specific questions here today. We're going to have a form here. Our promise from Community Boost in hosting this event is that we will, anyone that wants a one-to-one ad grant audit and strategy session can get it, as well as we also have created an ad grant academy. It's currently in beta, but we took it to market last quarter, and every single person can have that access to for more detailed, really hands-on learning. But without further ado, yeah, let's go ahead and dive in. Again, really helpful and appreciate everyone coming in today. But we'll kick off this panel, and we'll start it off with Michelle. First, I mean, why? Why does Google even give out this ad grant?
Fair. So let's see. I mean, Google's mission overall is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible. And nonprofits obviously just have a ton of incredibly valuable information to get out there. So we honestly think of it as our responsibility at this point. The program's been around for about 16 years now, from pretty early on when Google started making money. As soon as we knew that our ads were effective, we know that nonprofits need that extra boost to get there, because we know resources are tight. That being said, my team is a small and mighty team, but we are dedicated. This is, I don't know, maybe the 30th event we've held in the last year or so, and we try to do a fair amount of outreach. But we know we need to make it a little easier for you, right? It is a different world in digital compared to other kind of branding or offline ads, direct mail, and it's a transition for the space, of course, overall. And so, yeah, I think we want to educate here today and answer all the questions you have, get into accounts wherever possible, to make sure that the ads that we're giving are amplifying your efforts.
And I kind of forgot to even share this a little bit, but Blake and I are with an organization called Community Boost. So I'm the CEO and founder. He's our director of traffic and conversion. And kind of to Michelle's point, we started about 7-8 years ago, and we always wanted to just help nonprofits. That was our goal. But many nonprofits, we have great, creative and compelling campaign, but we struggle with potential new supporters. And we tested our first ad grant in 2014. It was a very big success for a very small organization where it was a small veteran cause. We took them from $14,000 in online giving to 96, and they're only doing $250,000 a year. It was a big win. That was an aha moment for us, and that's when we started doing more and more ad grants, and it's just such a powerful piece of the marketing mix. But Blake, in your opinion, kind of how do you see the ad grant fitting into the overall marketing mix, and can it drive revenue? And for a room like this, what's your kind of top ways to approach it?
Yeah, the Google Ad Grant can definitely drive revenue. I see it happen in the accounts I'm in every single day. I was telling the last group that was here in the morning that I really wish that because you were here, Michelle, you get to buddy up with Michelle, and she'll give you the secret key code to max your grant and only drive donations, but that's not the case. You're gonna have to put in the work. You're gonna have to become a practitioner. You're gonna have to test. You're gonna have to fail. And for those that don't have someone that's dedicated to really put in the time, it can be tough. And you might not see those results, or it's gonna take a really long time to see those results. And the other piece of it is quality. It's not really just about maxing the grant. I hear that a lot. People are like, I want to spend the full 10,000. That's my main goal. But if you can be more efficient with 5,000 and actually drive things that move the needle to your organization, that's more important than spending the grant. Make sure that you're spending it on relevant things, that you're actually driving relevant conversions, reaching the right people, and then scale from there. It's a lot easier to do it when you have a quality account, a healthy account. We'll kind of get into what that means later on. Something I just love to share with everyone that I meet when they're a new grantee or they're managing their grant, something that someone on our team actually brought to my attention, or just phrased it in a really great way, is that the Google Ad Grant doesn't drive donations, it drives donors. So let's let that sink in for a second. It helps you connect with people that are mission aligned, hopefully, if you've done your homework and you've done the right targeting, but it doesn't necessarily drive donations. It helps you connect with someone that's gonna come to your site, as long as you're directing them to the right pages, to learn more about you. But from that point on, it's really up to your organization to do the rest of the heavy lifting. You need to have landing pages that are gonna share the story in a compelling way. You're gonna need to have a funnel set up that moves them to your donation pages. You need to have places where you can actually capture their information and reach back out to them, because most likely the data shows that they're not gonna donate the first time they're on your site. You're gonna have to follow up over and over with email campaigns, or maybe even reach on another channel. And that's the power of the Google Ad Grant. It's really that search intent, starting to understand who those people are and build that out in your account. Like for Trevor Project, I'm grateful enough to work on that account with Katie, but it's all about going into the search terms and seeing what people are searching for. You know, help donate to suicide prevention or help donate to LGBTQ suicide prevention. Finding those tidbits, those pieces that really give insight into what people are searching for, and creating more of those kinds of ad groups and keywords. It's not a perfect tool, and it takes a lot of work. You're not going to become a pro by putting 1 hour in a month. You're going to have to do an hour, 2 hours plus, but it's doable. And we were just at the Classy Collaborative 3 months or so ago, and we were doing audits like we will be doing here today, and an older lady came up in her 70s and said, will you audit my account? And I was like, okay. Do you have a background in digital marketing? No background in digital marketing. And it was one of the best Google Ad Grant accounts I've ever seen. She wore a million different hats at her organization, but she just followed all of the Google resources to the T, found other resources online, and just absolutely mastered this thing. And it really just comes down to time and like the love that you put into it.
Excellent. So, Katie, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the Trevor Project and specifically how your organization uses the ad grant?
Absolutely. So hi, I'm Katie. I'm here with the Trevor Project. For those who don't know, the Trevor Project is the nation's leading and only accredited LGBTQ youth suicide prevention and crisis intervention hotline. We have text, chat, call services, as well as a safe social media space for LGBT youth 25 and under. It's really, really amazing. So I've only been there for a little under half a year. I am the first person they've ever hired to do digital fundraising in their 21-year history. So we're making strides, folks. But we were with the Google Ad Grant, and we weren't really using it to its full capacity. Before I started, and before Community Boost came on as a partner with the Trevor Project, we were basically directing all of our Google Ad Grants to donations because we were so focused on that ROI. Because it's easy to see, oh, we're getting this free ad grant, it's $10,000. Can we make that $10,000 back in directing to donate? But it wasn't the best use of our ad grant. And then before end of year last year, the Trevor Project went and got to work with Community Boost, and we started to really see how we could better optimize our spend by leading people more towards our Get Help pages and to show the tangible impact that our organization has. So we are seeing a lot of donors come in through pages that are not our donate page, and they're seeing our Get Help service, and they're seeing, oh, you can call this number, text this number, visit this website, and you'll be connected with a certified counselor to help any LGBTQ youth in crisis. And then from there, people really see the impact that their dollars can have on LGBTQ youth in this country. So that's kind of our history with our ad grant, and we did that last end of year. We optimized for that time, but now we're going through that season again, and we're just doing it even better this time around. So really excited for the next iteration.
And then, Blake, I know you ran point on that, and we have a lot of organizations here who have the ad grant, and Trevor Project had the ad grant, but you went in and you led and you went from audit to strategy to kind of making changes. So how do you approach that? How do you lead a team to approach that? And, again, what were some of those bigger KPIs that hit for Trevor Project, and any other things that you want to highlight there? And let's just dive a little deeper.
Yeah, I think going into year end, one of the biggest things, we did a kind of a revamp of the persona archetype that they had. So more just persona development, re-looking at who we were targeting with our Google ads and kind of asking ourselves, is this the same person that we're targeting from different channels? And if it is a different person, we need to tweak our ads to reflect that. And the ad copy and the actual affinity targeting that we're doing. And that made a huge difference. The second piece was adding in additional conversion tracking. So they were tracking some conversions, but they hadn't pulled all of their Classy data into the Google Ads account, which is something you can do if you haven't done that before. So if you have a donation platform and it integrates with Google Ads the way that Classy's does, shameless Classy plug right there, you can actually pull that conversion data in and optimize based off of donations. So it actually adds another layer of in-depth optimization in the sense that now I can see not just the donations happening from certain keywords, but how much those keywords actually attribute to the overall revenue in that account. By doing that, you can just more efficiently and effectively make decisions about new ad groups you want to build, keywords you want to build, and who you want to target. Those were the two biggies. I mean, there wasn't as much testing going on in the account as well, so just always A/B testing. For the most part, we had figured out the kinds of language that we needed to use to drive people to donate, but just being a little bit more risky in the kinds of tests that we were running, we found that we were a little bit off in the headlines and the descriptions that really moved the needle for the Trevor Project.
I think that just just to reiterate, last year end with the Trevor Project and with many of the ad grant accounts, we saw the best results from it by setting up conversion value tracking and hitting on one of these tactics that Blake was also briefly mentioning, but maximize conversion bidding strategy, which is something that we're going to walk through and help you visualize and do more of. That was a big win. But Michelle, you look at data for many ad grantees at scale. Just other top tips. What are some of your biggest recommendations?
Yeah. So something that we started looking at a couple years ago was we're giving out almost $1 billion a year. We wanted to make sure that we are having this multiplier effect on your goals and helping you actually reach your goals with all that, of course. And we started digging into the effect of it, the tracking on it. And unfortunately, we found that the majority of the clicks we were sending a couple years back were bouncing right off of the pages that they were being sent to, which means that people who were visiting your site after clicked on an ad, then they went to your site and they left. And this was like the majority. It's a very understandable thing. But that's what kind of since then we've been on this quest to hopefully make you guys all more effective with your ads. And that's kind of where I would start with any time that I look at an account. I first, most importantly, start with asking about your goals and understanding if your website is set up in a way that would accommodate those goals. So you can focus on a specific goal like a donation or a sign up or a lead or a petition signed or something like that. Of course, obviously then you have to make sure that the site can support the tracking on that. So that gets us into a more technical conversation, and we can always follow up from today's conversation with some of our Google Analytics specialists. If you're interested, just ask for it. The second angle that then the website thinking brings me to is kind of relating your cause to how people search. Basically, you can kind of think of search as like embodying human curiosity. There's really so many different ways that people search for things, and there are so many different phases of their lives, especially in the really critical topics that we often deal with. And so, here's like just an example. Actually, I was talking with someone recently, or just earlier. If you're in a space of offering help reading, like a reading assessment, right? If you're at what we call kind of the bottom of the funnel, you're saying like, here's someone who wants to search for, is my kid dyslexic, right? That's one phase that someone's going to be in, and they might convert directly onto your free assessment site or opportunity there. But there's other phases, like if I was just told by a teacher that my kid may have a reading problem and I don't even know what dyslexia is, I've never heard about it. You actually have pages on your website that describe the problem at a more like, I'm just getting started learning about this. Another level would be, okay, the teacher just told me, now I'm actually scared. I need to understand the symptoms of it, or how do I get screened? How do I understand the tangential? They name some learning assessment that's run by the state, and is that a good one? Or how, then they go to solutions, of course. How can I get help? It goes back to what Blake mentioned about search intent. There's different phases of how people are searching. And then you layer on top of it the many beautiful ways that we all search. Some of us write in full sentences to Google, some of us write in very few words, and we have about 5.5 billion searches per day, and over the course of a year, 15% of those searches are ones that Google has never before seen in our history. Language is incredibly diverse, and that's why I think it goes to that point that Blake was making as well around testing and kind of keep iterating, because it changes over time. Once you have some initial data coming into your account and it's working on your website, right? Someone is actually taking action on your website. Then you can keep iterating on that. Like the data comes in instantly, and then you can keep testing new things and trying. So in preparation, I know mindsets are on Giving Tuesday right now. I'm sure that many of you are working on campaigns. We would suggest, for example, using ad grants as a way that is risk-free, essentially. Test what kinds of language and stories you want to tell. Test which images work well for you on the web page, the landing pages that you want to. If you're kind of debating internally with your team this image or this one, you can actually just start a quick campaign and send to both and see which one converts better. But back to Blake's point, it all begins with like the site and making sure that you have tracking in place. So we definitely can help you with that today.
Yeah, it's like that classic management saying, you can't improve what you're not measuring. And even to someone's point earlier of, well, we want to maximize the grant. But, it's not all about spend, right? We're not looking to just maximize that grant. That's not how we ultimately want to measure success in our ad grant, is what conversions are we driving. And to Michelle's point, yes, we all want donations, but the ad grant is such a powerful tool when we think about, bringing in new people. And we use this term a lot, of a marketing funnel, right? And you have people that are more exploring what you're about, resources, maybe you can build subscribers there, and then you can nurture them, right? Marketing, we shop differently online in today's world. It's certainly more omni-channel, and the ad grant is such a powerful tool to learn there and to build that muscle as an organization that can tackle things on the digital front. Blake, you've led a team that has managed hundreds of ad grant accounts. Any just high-level top tips? I think someone had mentioned kind of 80-20, like we have limited resources. What do we do to get the most, in your opinion?
Yeah, especially when it comes to optimizing, if you're trying to get the most. 80-20 is a great rule. We actually apply that at Community Boost when we're doing optimizations. We only have an hour for this day to go into an account. You have 40 campaigns and they all have 10 ad groups. It would take forever. You could spend an endless amount of time in that account. Look at the things that are driving the most conversions. And that's why it's really important to have that tracking, because if you don't, you're kind of flying in the dark. You might know that donations are coming from your ads, but you can't pinpoint which ones are driving those donations. Then how do you know what to iterate? Focus on the places where you're seeing the most happen and build off of that. Another piece we kind of were talking about, paid search. Even if you're not planning on doing paid maybe anytime in the foreseeable future, you can still create a paid account, add a credit card to it. You don't have to spend anything, but what that does, it allows you to use Google Ad Pixel that you can place on all pages of your site and start to build what are called remarketing lists. So if you're not familiar with remarketing, it's one of the biggest tools that's available in a paid account that's not in the grant. Kind of imagine you're buying a dog toy for your dog and you add it to your cart, and then you decide for whatever reason that you're not going to buy it right then. And then across the internet, you're getting hit with that same exact dog toy, urging you to purchase it, right? A similar thing is possible in Google Ads for nonprofits. So someone reaches a donation page, they decide not to donate right at that moment for whatever reason, but you can remind them and hit them with a remarketing ad about why they should be donating to your organization, the benefits of that. And the cool thing about remarketing too, it can be really, really cheap. If they're not clicking on that, what's called a display ad, if you're showing them an image and urging them to come to your site, you actually don't get charged for it. So it's a great way to stay top of mind, but we see in the data that it takes 7, 8, 9 times for someone to come back and donate. So staying top of mind with a remarketing ad when they're on the internet and other places of the internet is so, so important. I would say those are 2 big pieces that you can set yourself up for success. So you can't do remarketing with the grant, but you can still, this is what's cool about using them together, is you can use the grant as a great place to build those remarketing audiences. So the grant is free spend, you can send people to different pages of your site, and then segment off different remarketing audiences based on where those people, kind of the touch point that they meet you at.
Do you all offer support with folks that are going into marketing? Because my organization did end up doing paid marketing before I came in, and then both of the accounts kind of went mute, and it took us almost 2 years to reopen a Google Ad grant because there had been a credit card that was associated with our nonprofit on record, and it was a really, really difficult, lengthy process. So I personally am like, I'm not putting a credit card anywhere near Google and my nonprofit number, because it made it was almost 2 years of a process to get our account active again.
Wow. Account recovery is a tough issue because Google is very committed to privacy. But Chris, in the background right behind you, just fixed that issue in April, I think, of this year. So you'll be good to go from here on out, I think. Yeah, basically we had systems that weren't talking to each other. But now, if that ever happens again, we basically start your account over again, and it'll be fine. Yeah. So sorry about that experience, though, too. Goodness. But I have a question over here.
I was going to ask, with remarketing, if we have a site that's also doing business in Europe, are there any implications for GDPR? And is there anything that as nonprofits who might need to do things, is there any resources that we have that we can like easily get GDPR language or anything we need for our site?
I mean, I feel like I have to put a legal stipulation in there. I mean, you definitely want to share that you are running cookies. People accept that. But that's pretty much, what the majority of GDPR sites do. And as long as you're not doing like aggressive outbound, why don't we connect one-on-one on it if you're worried about it? But it's pretty manageable. Oh, sorry, you.
Well, tips, right? We're talking about any other tips. And as far as the questions, so the paid question, 2 people had questions around paid. So, yeah, I guess, ad grants is the beginning of an online journey into digital ads. I mean, ad grants gets you started. It takes out all the risk to get started because digital ads is a unique form of marketing. It gets you learning the system, and it gets you enough time to then figure out what works. But I'd be remiss not to say that it can't solve everything for you. There's a lot more to digital ads than just search on google.com. I would argue it is the core, and you should be doing it. But after that, there is a whole lot more out there. And one of them is a paid search ad just in and of itself, because ad grants only shows when there's space left over after paying ads. So there is certainly some spaces that are very, very competitive, and you won't get any access in ad grants, but you absolutely will in paid. There are also times that matter more than others to be in paid. Like, for example, holiday season obviously gets more competitive, or if there's a policy topic that's going on that raises a lot of awareness for your space, or a research paper that comes out speaking about disease, or a celebrity who speaks out about something he, she, or they are going through, it can raise a lot of awareness. And where do people turn? Typically to Google to search for things. People are wondering about things, and they get their answers from search. So at those times of year when you have really important pieces of you have an important role to play in that conversation, those are also possible spikes to consider paid search. Then beyond that, remarketing, I think, is an incredible tool. We are kind of working on internally on what we can do to offer more there, but in the meantime, paid remarketing is absolutely worth it. I mean, for just that notion of the donor cycle, it is something that keeps you top of mind, and it's a great point that you don't even pay for it if no one's clicking. So it's really helpful from just that top of mind standpoint. But also even, something I know for nonprofits or a struggle area is like, how do you follow up with your donors? How do you keep them after they donate to get to the second time or switch them to a monthly donor? Remarketing would also be great for that, for example, because you can thank them. Or you just show them like this is the impact that we're having and kind of relate it in your story to the fact that these donations went to this, right? And then also display and video is a whole nother space, of course, and we don't have to get into it, for everyone who's not necessarily ready yet. But I mean, consumer behavior is changing, and image and video ads are incredibly powerful. And so, encourage you to at least try some of that out too.
A couple other ones. Two other really actionable things that you could be doing in your account. If you aren't using, how many people are familiar with Maximize conversion bidding strategy? A couple of you? Okay, so that's a really big deal. Basically, first you have to have conversion tracking set up in your account. So once you've done that, I think that there's a takeaway. It's you need to have that in the account, right? But once you've done that, you can actually use this other bidding strategy called Maximize Conversion Bidding Strategy, which allows Google's machine learning to optimize, to show your ads to more people like those that have already converted. So for example, let's say over a year end, 200 people donate to you. Google's machine learning can start to understand a little bit more about who those people are, their affinities, what time of day do they actually donate to you, what are their interests, and then target more of those people later on down the line when you run other campaigns. So versus having to do it so manually, you can let Google work for you and reach more relevant people and stretch your dollar more efficiently. You should be testing it on any campaign where you have conversions tracking right now. It should be a huge takeaway. And also, this is a little bit more simple, but have other people test your donation funnels. Not people within your organization, have a friend or a family member go through it and see if they run into any snags. Because oftentimes I see our partners, they're just so close to their funnel that they know how to go through it and they don't see any problems with it. But try it on mobile. If the mobile responsiveness is poor, people are not going to donate to you. If you look at the data, almost all traffic, not almost, but a majority of the traffic is mobile. So if you're not ready for that, if you're not mobile friendly, you're missing a huge piece of the pie. Having people test to see if your donation button actually works is huge. Just go through and revamp the whole funnel if you can.
Yeah, and I mean, I just want to highlight I'm sorry, I forget her name, but you were asking about, again, limited time, like across the board for our ad grant accounts at year end, Maximize Conversion Bidding Strategy was really important. And then to the gentleman's point who was running ad grants, I mean, I think he's a pretty high paid ad budget compared to what a lot of our nonprofits had at times. But, definitely explore it. But using the ad grant is kind of your sandbox in a way. And this is where we're playing with and testing things. And this is showing momentum and then moving, and especially the things that are so important that we want the absolute most impression share and we think drive revenue, especially if that's what you're being held accountable for paid ad spend, moving that into your paid ad account. I think one thing we're bullish on just tactically for this year end that we haven't done a ton of in previous years, but definitely really excited to do more as more nonprofits have improved video assets is YouTube pre-roll ads, which are pretty cool, and we've been running them more. And you can basically show ads, before somebody watches something on YouTube based on what they search. So we have to do this in our paid Google ad account, but it's powerful, right? When somebody's searching best charities in San Francisco and, did whatever they want, but then all of a sudden are seeing a video of your organization that is, a sizzle reel, it can be really powerful, and we're doing a lot more of that today too. But yeah, should we just hit Q&A or? Okay. Cool. So questions.
One thing I didn't get to ask earlier is, what is your guys' advice or guidance in regards to smart campaigns versus search campaigns?
So for those of you who don't know, smart campaigns basically take out a lot of the upfront work for anyone. You basically just pick your category and give your website, and we try to figure out what are the best keywords for you. They work really well if you're only going to spend an hour a month on your account otherwise. If you're willing to spend a little bit more, then we'd recommend using standard campaigns, because there is a lot more functionality, a lot more fun you can have with it. But again, for the vast majority of nonprofits and arguably most of Google's customers who can't spend that much time on it, smart campaigns is a wonderful option. So no shame there at all.
So I come from an organization that works with a ton of partners that have brand names associated with them, like universities, for example, and we get pinged all the time for talking about in our ads something that has one of our partner names in it, even though the program is a partner collaboration, as an example. And I don't know how to overcome this because this is really part of our business model, and it's something we hit on. So, and we're not able to address a good section of our programs because of these keyword issues with the whole brand name problem. So I don't know if you have any advice on that.
That one sounds pretty specific. I mean, what's that?
We've run into that problem.
Yeah, in which way?
Yeah, so Trevor Project also has a lot of corporate sponsorships that we work with, and a lot of information on our site that's really sensitive that gets flagged a lot on Google Ads, like suicide, like, well, obviously suicide, self-harm. But we worked with Community Boost, and I actually worked directly with Blake here, and we just made some minor changes on some web pages that got us over that, but you can also work directly with people at Google Ads. That'll help you out, but there's usually really actionable items you can take that can just reduce that risk.
Maybe, yeah, putting on the two terms together, the two brands together, but yeah. Like, we can follow up with you as well during one-on-ones.
Yeah, I come from consumer action that does lots of consumer education, so whenever we're trying to prevent fraud happening, so we have lots of sensitive words that we use get flagged and get blocked, and it's just, so far we have not asked for any audit. That would be something I would love to find out how to do that. And we kind of stumble around, just use other term or avoiding using this and that. Basically, we just gave up on certain terms because we don't know how to get around. Even for automobile repair, we cannot get around it, so it's frustrating.
Good to know. Maybe this is a perfect time to tell you a little bit about some resources that we offer for the long run for you outside of just this event. So if anyone doesn't know this already, you can call 1-866-2-GOOGLE to speak with ads experts. That's, yeah, just always an option. I'm not sure if it's 24/7 these days, actually. We have a certified professionals community that we've referenced here. Community Boost is one of our founding members, one that we trust immensely. We have vetted fully, like thoroughly, about 50 agencies that we recommend working with. These are ones that are dedicated to nonprofits, and their business model is sound for, in terms of making sure that they're not just setting you up and then letting you go. So we are very happy with these partners, and you can find a list of these partners on our website if you just Google Grants. For those of you who are not interested in an agency at the moment, another option that we offer is working with a partnership network of professors who teach digital marketing at lots of universities and colleges around the world. And you can sign up to basically be a field study for them, where a team of 3 or 4 students will work with your account for 6 weeks and give you a thorough optimization and help you learn a little bit about it along the way. And then another thing that we've staffed in the last year is asking a question through our online community. So a good colleague of mine, Amar, sits near me and he answers questions all day from people who have questions posted on our online community. So that's within our help center and you can directly ask us questions that way. We also have YouTube videos on a YouTube channel, so 20, 30-minute webinars on specific topics. Like, for example, how to pick keywords. Another topic is how to raise your quality score, or another topic is around how to fix conversion tracking. So as far as like education goes, actually, I mean, probably first and foremost would recommend Community Boost's thorough, like 4-hour academy at this point that they just launched recently. But for very specific topics that you need just the quick view, we also offer that. And what else? Anything I'm missing? We do a lot of events like this. Maybe one more thing, actually. Inside every one of your accounts, there's a tab called Recommendations. And on that tab, Maximize Conversions is one of them that is probably on several of yours, given that I didn't see as many hands raised there. We basically have some things that we look at your account and regularly send personalized, tailored suggestions, and you can usually, for the most part, click, okay, I accept, and we'll implement it for you. So we're trying to do a little bit more of like the we'll do it for you. But I think, to that overall question around how do you maximize the impact with very minimal time that we know is a real struggle in our space. Goodness, that's just water. Okay, I'll apologize to Justin later. We recognize it's a fair learning curve, and that's why we are trying to de-risk a lot of it for you, and just want to help you get the most out of today then, and Community Boost's kind offer to provide audits for you, for each and every one of you.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like AdGrants is certainly a learning curve, but I think it's important to, as an organization, as you coach leadership, as you're trying to secure resources and just time to do these things I mean, this is just where people's attention is at. Like, it's online, and tools like AdGrants or Facebook ads or whatever it is like our organizations need to build the muscle to be able to tackle these channels, because the organizations that tackle these channels well early are the ones that wins the most on them. And I think that's just really important to pay attention to, and some language that seems to work pretty well for us when we're talking to boards with, well, why do you want our intern to put in X amount of hours into this per month? Because it's not just to get results out of our AdGrants, it's as an organization, we have to be able to move in these channels quickly and effectively. More questions? I think we got a few more minutes.
We don't have enough time to spend on AdGrants, and we have a simple strategy, which is trying to get people to sign up for our email list and then engage with them the rest of the year until they unsubscribe. And I was wondering if how you would, without a lot of time, how you might switch up that. We're satisfied with that strategy. It does work, but we could be doing a lot more. And I was wondering if you had things that would be tangential to that strategy, so that we could do that as our main effort, but other things that we could strive to switch it up a little bit.
Quickly, what's your mission in the organization?
We would like to reduce and eventually eliminate nuclear weapons.
Okay.
Something very effective that we've seen is providing statistics. Like, people go to Google to look for researching things, right? So in a field like yours, I could see a space where you are providing statistics on things, you're providing trends, you are also providing like quizzes, kind of questions, right? Like especially people who are learning about how horrible the problem is. You could offer quizzes that then you're collecting their email address that way. Also, petitions work very well for our space as well. So you get them started on a petition, and then you follow up with them in some other way. Anything else come to mind?
Yeah.
So before I was at the Trevor Project, I was actually agency side, and then I, decided to go back to the client side. And so something I can say about email acquisition, especially when you're doing search ads, is just trying to diversify your ask. So, I mean, quizzes and petitions are a great point, like surveys, basically any way you can capture that information without just being like, join our email list, because people want to diversify what they're able to do and interact with your organization. So I think something else that's really important when it comes to search ads that I've seen is just making sure it's very clear what you do on that landing page. So if you're asking somebody to sign a petition and maybe it's about something really, really particular, like for example, we're running a campaign right now about model school policy, which is actually we're trying to make sure that every school district across the United States has a suicide prevention policy in place, and one that is LGBTQ youth friendly. So we always make sure that the landing page that is coming from those ads, you just have to remember that maybe people have no context at all about what you do, and just always making sure it's clear what impact you make in the space, as well as just trying to offer them something beyond adding their email, even if it's what you're doing, but just trying to make it feel like they're taking a step in an action.
I think to further piggyback on it, I mean, it's overall a pretty good strategy for ad grants, especially if you're seeing success in moving those emails to further donors or engaging members, whatever that is for your cause. And so if you have traction in certain campaigns or ad groups, definitely like test the landing pages. We'll do things like Unbounce or ClickFunnels. These are tools that allow you to like A/B test your landing pages. And definitely, it's not just about subscribing, but providing guides. We'll see what we have, organizations that are sending a lot of traffic around homelessness statistics in the Bay Area, right? And then get our guide on this, or to the reading example Michelle mentioned, if somebody's exploring something like guides, tips, those are great, what we call a lead magnet. And then as long as you're providing value after that, it can be really effective. More questions?
We were lucky enough to have somebody at Google that likes our nonprofit, and he was a great resource for Google Ads, and unfortunately moved to Europe. But does Google have a program for the volunteers? I've worked at a company where Google employees on their volunteer time come in and clean and do other things. Do they have volunteers to help a nonprofit that they're aligned with, that they want to help with their Google Ads program?
We definitely do. 2 times a year, it's a very big, massive event, actually, and we would do proactive outreach at that time. But we've also done, for the most part, it's all proactive. So we don't have like a form or anything to sign up for. But we do, we just had Refugee Month, or we just had the Notre Dame fire. We just had mental health awareness is right now. And so we run like times when we can get volunteers who then can sign up with you. It's a good point that like something that we are thinking about internally more is how do we get more proactive about reaching out to the grantees that like at the right time for you, because we've struggled from time to time setting out objectives with volunteers, but then the nonprofits aren't quite ready. The websites needs to be done or redone, or they're switching fundraising platforms, or they're optimizing their donation form, or they just lost someone, the intern turned over, whatever it is. We are looking into a way. It's just a matter of us figuring out how to scale it, because there's about 10 of us and about 50,000 grantees that we serve for if I didn't mention that already. And so we want to. I think you'll probably hear from us in the next 6 months or so, some way for us to have you apply for more help at certain times of the year. I think that would be important, because your campaigns run at different times of the year, and there's so many awareness spikes for different things. So we're going to try to get there.
Question. On that same vein, you mentioned earlier about this college student marketing challenge.
You'd like to hear more about that?
Oh, yeah, could I hear more about the college marketing challenge?
Of course, the question is around the student volunteers that we have. So the program was launched just over a year ago. We've served 1,000 nonprofits that way with 6 weeks of account management. some of the students, I'm sure, actually do stay on because they feel passionate about the cause. So it could be a nice way to get volunteers anyway. But yeah, it's you can Google online marketing challenge. I don't. We're working through some issues with our site as well. We all go through it, and I don't think the link is on our site yet. But if you Google online marketing challenge, you will see a form at the bottom of a page that says sign up, and we would then go through a process probably the next month or so to link you up with an account team. And it wouldn't be necessarily local. You would do things through a video conference, maybe or on the phone, but you would give them access to your account temporarily. They would create like okay, we've looked at we understand your goals now. Here's our campaign strategy. You approve it, they implement it, they monitor it, and optimize it for a few weeks, and they end with all right, this is what we learned, this is what it drove, this is what we recommend now for you to take the next step.
One last question.
The online marketing challenge is on our website now. Oh, good. Thank you, Christine.
All right, last question. Here we go.
It's a little bit related to keywords and how to be strategic in the way you assign the keywords to each campaign or each project. And to know, is there a way to know what are people really searching for, or a tool to know which keywords are aligned to the projects that you're doing? Because in our case, we see two main campaigns that we have. They're pulling everything that we have, and the rest are for some reason not working. And we use kind of the same strategy for all, but we want to.
Yeah, we just hear a lot about how to pick keywords, but I guess something I could start off with is honestly, here's maybe just an example that could bring some color to this one. So I was working with a nonprofit recently because their main source of revenue is to sell fair trade coffee. We looked into the Google Analytics data to see that most folks were bouncing right off of it because they only offered one gift, right? One coffee. So it's very, very broad. So then you have to start thinking about, what else are people interested in? You can angle that as like, okay, some people are going to buy it as a gift. Some people just are committed to fair trade coffee. Some people are interested in just like sustainability and ethical treatment of things. And you kind of get some categories. And then from there, I honestly started Googling myself, get a sense of what words are being used in ad copy, and then you just start adding a few of those, right? You start with 10 keywords in an ad group and you write your ad. 1 week later, you should hopefully have a fair amount of data coming into your search terms report. If anyone hasn't used the search terms report, I highly recommend it because Google already tries to do the harder work of matching to a ton of other keywords, so you don't have to have the enormous variety that human language is inside your account. But you will very quickly get some feedback in terms of the search terms report, and you'll start seeing, okay, well, this one now is actually very relevant. This one isn't, so I actually exclude that as a negative keyword, and you just kind of keep growing your account that way. That's probably one of the more simplistic ways of saying it all.
Yeah, that's great advice. Something I definitely want to suggest it. And you touched on it too. You don't have to reinvent the wheel with all of your ads and keywords and campaigns too. I never suggest just stealing someone else's ad copy, but there are tools out there that let you see the types of keywords and types of ads that other organizations that might have a similar mission to yours are using. And you can get a feel for what they might be going after. That could be a great place to start. Search term report is great. Yeah, exactly. Keyword Planner is a great one if you're not using that. That's also a tool where there's a couple different ways you can go about it. You could enter your URL into it, and it'll give you keyword suggestions based off of the copy and text on your site, because those should be aligned, as well as the ad copy that you're using. But you can also enter in a keyword that you think is relevant to something that someone might be searching, or a keyword that's already performing well, and Google will give you additional suggestions on keywords that you can build out.
All right, so why don't we just do a quick lightning round, final advice and tips from the panelists?
Conversion tracking, please do it. Maximize conversion bidding strategy.
Make sure you're showing your impact of what you do.
use Google Analytics as well, not just Google Ads. Google Analytics is another very powerful free tool, and it will tell you what people do after the click, which is incredibly important to make sure that what you're doing in ad grants counts.
My name is Katie Golland. I lead our product and partner marketing teams for Classy. For those of you who don't know what Classy is, we're an online fundraising software. So our founders actually started as fundraisers themselves. Back in 2006, they were raising money for their mother who was diagnosed with breast cancer. They actually started with a pub crawl in San Diego to raise money to give back to breast cancer research and realized there wasn't really an easy way to give money online. And so they ended up creating basically an event page, which they then created multiple events in San Diego to give back to nonprofits and realized they should start a fundraising software. So fast forward, we now have over 4,000 nonprofits we work with today and continuing to expand. So just wanted to introduce myself, and I'm super excited to talk to you today about year-end giving. So I'm going to kick it off with some strategies, best practices, show you some campaign examples. And when we refer to campaigns in Classy terminology, it's your landing page or where you're collecting donations. So just so we can kind of set the groundwork for terminology. Before we dive in, I'd love to get a little assessment of the room in terms of where you're at with year-end planning. So how many of you already have a campaign or landing page live and ready to accept donations for year-end? All right, this is going to be super helpful for everyone then. How many of you are participating in Giving Tuesday? Okay, half the room-ish. And how many of you are planning to do both Giving Tuesday and a year-end appeal? Okay, how many of you are combining the appeals into one? Okay, all right, cool. Then this will be helpful. So let's kick it off with just kind of macro statistics on how the trend was last year in terms of online giving and the giving season. So 31% of all annual giving occurs in December. That's nearly 1/3 of all giving that occurs in 1 month of the year, which is crazy. 11% of annual donations occur during the last 3 days of the year. And our Classy statistics measure up pretty similar to what we're seeing with annual giving. So about 28% of giving occurs between Giving Tuesday and the end of the year, December 31st. So just kind of painting the picture here for how important it is to really be thinking about your year-end giving strategy now. It's not too late. Most nonprofits, about 52% of nonprofits actually start their appeals for year-end in October. So we're almost at October, you still have time. So let's start getting to think about it. Okay, I'm going to start with Giving Tuesday here because I really think Giving Tuesday is a great way to kick off your year-end giving strategy. So Giving Tuesday happens the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So after Thanksgiving, after Black Friday, when all of consumers are kind of busy spending their money, this is a great way for them to give back and to use their dollars in a charitable way. Who knows when Giving Tuesday is this year? December 3rd, correct, on the money. So yes, so Giving Tuesday as a whole has increased year over year. So you can see the trend line here on the right-hand side. Everybody wants to see an up and to the right curve for their business or their organization or whatever you are promoting. Giving Tuesday as a movement has grown year over year. From 2017 to 2018, it grew 46%. So it's not going anywhere. Last year alone, it raised $400 million online in the US. That's on one day. And 3.6 million total online gifts in 2018. So I just wanted to share some of our Classy statistics as well in terms of what we're seeing on our platform. So 41% increase in total donations on Giving Tuesday, 50% increase in the dollars raised online in that 24 hours, 37% increase in donors, 17% increase in recurring donors, and then 23% increase in active campaigns. So we are showing similar momentum here for Giving Tuesday, and it's not slowing down. So even given all those statistics, we still hear pretty common objections to why nonprofits choose not to participate in Giving Tuesday. I realize not everybody has a lot of people that they have be able to utilize for year-end and Giving Tuesday specifically. So we often hear it's too close to year-end and it takes away from my year-end campaign. We actually find that it doesn't necessarily take away from your year-end campaign. In fact, donors on Giving Tuesday are more likely to give again, even on the same day, to the same nonprofit. And we find about 60% of donors doing that. So ask on Giving Tuesday, thank them for their donation, and maybe make an ask again for year-end giving. But make sure you make that messaging targeted and appreciate them for their gifts. We've never gotten traction on Giving Tuesday. Why participate now? Hopefully those statistics kind of help shed some light on how important the movement is, and people want to give on that day. So you have to have a presence, even if limited to start out. Think about what you want to do and how you want to present yourself on that day, because it's not going anywhere. And actually we find that the typical demographic on this day, in terms of age, is about 25. So if you're looking to get in front of a younger audience, this is a perfect opportunity to do so. And then lastly, we only run our Giving Tuesday campaign on Facebook, which is totally fine to have a campaign on Facebook. It's a perfect opportunity for people to find you and fundraise on your behalf. But the only negative or potential negative for Facebook is that about 5 to 10% of donors actually opt in to giving you their email address. So that's a fairly limited amount of people who are telling you that they want to hear from you again. So by coupling that with a fundraising campaign, a more robust fundraising campaign that allows you to capture all that donor data, you can then find strategies to nurture, engage, retarget those donors to become lifelong supporters of your mission. So now let's dive into some planning and year-end fundraising best practices. All right, so to kick it off, you want to look at what you did last year. If you had a strategy in place, if you were doing Giving Tuesday, or if you were doing year-end, take a look at what you did. What did you do well? What would you like to improve? What was your marketing mix? Did you utilize Google Ad Grants? Did you utilize social media, email? What worked well, what didn't? Get everyone in their room and talk about it to figure out what you want to invest in this year versus what you want to scale back on a little bit, because maybe it didn't work so well last year. Next, establish your campaign's focus. So what do you want to achieve? What's the narrative or the theme you want to portray across your campaign landing page? Really make it personalized and tell your story, and really try to show the impact that you're creating. Next, set a SMART goal. So how many of you have heard of SMART goals? If you're redundant, you probably have heard of before. Or goals in general. It's just very important to have a goal coming into your campaign to know what you want to measure and what are you considering success. If you don't know that, it's hard to look back on your year-end fundraising and say, were we successful or not? So your goal should be specific. So what's that specific KPI or maybe donation volume you want to hit? Measurable. So make sure there's a dollar or some sort of number tied to it so you can actually measure it. Attainable. So you definitely want something that's a little bit out of reach, but not so crazy that you can't attain it. Relevant. So make sure it ties back to your overall mission. And then time-bound. So this one's a little bit easier because Giving Tuesday and year-end giving falls within that kind of same time frame. So just make sure you have a time basis where you want to actually say, okay, we achieved our goal. And then lastly, create a timeline. So get everyone on the same page in terms of what your strategy is. Are you starting potentially 3 weeks out from Giving Tuesday with a save the date and then following up with some nurture emails or some Google Ad Grant or some social media or whatever your plan is? Make sure everyone is aware of what that plan is. One thing I like to call it here, because our team does this on the Classy side, is we kind of work off of an agile software methodology, which you do kind of daily stand-ups or daily scrums is what they call it. You can consider doing something like that, like every week leading up to Giving Tuesday or peak giving, and then maybe every day, just to keep everyone on the same page. If you do have a team that's involved in different departments and launching your strategy, it's a great way to connect as a team and say, for ours, we do 15-minute stand-ups, and we say, this is what I'm doing on the digital side. This is what I'm doing on the content side. This is what I'm doing on whatever the other team members are. Everyone gives a quick update, and you can check in on progress. It helps everyone stay aligned. Okay, map out your communication strategy. This is a super important piece of how you promote your landing page or your campaign. You can have the most beautiful campaign in the world, but if you don't have a strategy to get it out there in front of donors, then no one's going to know about it. So here's some strategies or ideas we have to share with you in terms of what you can do to get the word out. So one, send a save the date. This is kind of thinking about Giving Tuesday in particular. You can send a save the date in October and get people to know that you're actually participating. Maybe donate in advance or schedule or set a reminder for yourself to give on that day. So that's a great opportunity for you to let people know you're participating in that day. Second, build in time for your digital promotion strategy, which is a lot of what today is all about. And then lastly, send more than one appeal. Has anyone ever heard of the rule of 7? Raise your hand if you have. What is it? Putting you on the spot.
People usually will not donate, as it takes about 7 times for people to actually take action on your website.
Correct. So just to reiterate what you said, the rule of 7 is an old marketing adage, which basically says you have to get in front of your prospects 7 times in order for them to want to donate or for them to want to purchase from you. So the same rule can be applied here. Don't fear the unsubscribe. This is a perfect time to communicate to donors because they want to give. So, but just be very thoughtful in this communication strategy. Make sure you're thinking about every touch point. So as I mentioned before, you could have a strategy where you're sending a save the date about 3 weeks out. You're following up with a nurture where you're talking about maybe we have a donor matching program. You're following up with social media. You have your ad grants running. Everything's kind of saying that consistent message, pointing to that campaign landing page. A few more kind of tips before we dive into some campaign examples. So these are our recommended campaign elements. First, make it personal. Maybe focus on a specific story or of a personal story from one of your constituents, but make that your narrative and focus on the storytelling aspect throughout your campaign. This can be done through visuals, it can be done through content, but make it very personal and show the donor where their dollars are going. Secondly, use compelling visual assets. You could use GIFs, you could use videos, photos, but try to bring that story to life with visual elements. Strong, tangible asks that correlate to your goal. So the next two kind of go hand in hand. You really want to tie the ask back to your mission. So, for example, if your goal is $20,000, what is that $20,000 going towards? Is it going towards a van to help your program? Is it going towards X number of scholarships? Is it going towards whatever your mission is or wherever those dollars are going? Put that on your page, share with people so that they feel more compelled to donate, and then provide giving levels. So one element we have on our crowdfunding campaigns and peer-to-peer campaigns at Classy are impact blocks. So you can showcase multiple giving levels tied to specific things or pieces of your mission that it's going back to. So for example, you might ask for $50 to help feed 3 children, or you might ask for $100 to feed a whole family. Whatever that dollar amount is, try to tie it back to where those dollars are going. And then, sorry, excuse me 1 second. And then make sure to segment your audience. So some people choose to segment their audience for Giving Tuesday and for year-end differently. So maybe your year-end campaign is more geared towards your VIP donors, and your Giving Tuesday campaign may be more unengaged or low-end donors, where you might divide that segmentation out a little bit differently based on which campaign you want them to donate to. But think about, even as like a baseline, think about prospective donors, current donors, and maybe like donors that are a little bit unengaged as potentially 3 different segments. And also think about recurring donors. Thank those donors for their gifts throughout the year and ask them to give again. They're very invested in your mission, why wouldn't they give again? But again, with segmentation, make sure your messaging is very consistent with how you're segmenting your audience. And then last but not least, prioritize your follow-up strategy. So one of our customers actually saw some of the most volume of donations through their thank you email. So people saw the thank you and then wanted to give again. So make sure you send that thank you, and when people feel thanked and bought into your mission, they'll share with their friends and family and hopefully continue that momentum. So don't wait till the end to think about your follow-up strategy. Okay, now we're going to dive into a few campaign examples that we really like, and to kind of kick off what this campaign is, it's a crowdfunding campaign. So when we refer to crowdfunding campaigns at Classy, essentially it's a landing page that gives you a lot of real estate to provide visual assets and content that tell your story. The nice thing about crowdfunding campaigns is it does have this hero image up top. It has that clear call to action to donate now. You have those impact blocks on the right side, so you can see that imagery that's tied to real gifts. And then there's also, you can't see here, but there's a thermometer that'll go up as donations come in. So this is really important. I think in giving psychology, people want to know how far you are to your goal. And if you're close, maybe they'll give more. So it's great for Giving Tuesday for year end. People will check back in. And if you're close to your goal, maybe they'll give again. Some of the elements we really liked about this campaign is that this one's specific to Giving Tuesday, but they use the Giving Tuesday branding. Giving Tuesday branding is free. They allow you to use it. Think about maybe including that into your Giving Tuesday strategy. As well as they did a donation match. So they had a partner who actually matched all of their donations. They actually had a strategy where they had $50,000 in match funds, and then on the day of Giving Tuesday, they ran out of that matching funds and ended up unlocking another $50,000 from another donor partner, and were able to re-message out to people and let them know that they've unlocked another match. In addition, they had a Facebook video playing, or a video that they promoted on Facebook, and the donor actually matched for all likes, shares, and comments on the post. So just another maybe strategy to think through when you're considering a donor matching partner. This is just some examples of emails. So you can see the imagery that they use. They actually use some of their real patients throughout their branding, which made it really relevant to their mission and their impact. So we love that they did that, and they did this throughout their entire campaign. And you can see here their Save the Date actually had that call to action to schedule your gift. So leading up to Giving Tuesday, the call to action was schedule your gift. Now this is just showing some examples of how the campaign was very cohesive across their channels. So this is how they utilized social media to promote their campaign for Giving Tuesday. The top left was their Save the Date. The top right was the day before Giving Tuesday. And then the bottom was the day of, saying you still have time, with one of their patients actually holding a clock, which I thought was really creative. Now let's move on to another example. Water 4, they did a great job at visual storytelling. So right away, you hit this landing page or you hit this crowdfunding campaign, and it pulls at your heartstrings. You can feel the story. So, and with a clear call to action to give now. And then carrying the storytelling throughout the page, and you can see their branding really shining throughout the page. So they have some statistics up top sharing kind of how their impact is helping to change and promote their mission. And then they also have their call to actions are very clear. I want to change this, carrying that story through, and then they have those impact blocks up on the top right as well, with those clear defined dollar amounts that go back to actual impact. And then at the very bottom, one thing I liked about this campaign, they actually allow people to, from their crowdfunding campaign, jump over to create their own fundraising page. So you can see launch your own Safe Water campaign, allowing people to actually fundraise on their behalf. So that's kind of a combination of a crowdfunding campaign and a peer-to-peer campaign. And I forgot to mention that this campaign actually was specific to year end. So it wasn't specific to Giving Tuesday, but they actually had a Giving Tuesday appeal to drive people to that campaign. So the email here on the left, they also had a donor matching program. So you can visually see how far your dollars are going. And they actually had triple your donation for first-time donors, which I thought was a pretty creative strategy as well. And then on the right, just kind of a follow-up email to show how they portrayed the overall impact to donors after the campaign was over. And the last campaign example I wanted to show you was an organization, Salvation Army, that actually utilized the same campaign for both Giving Tuesday and year end. So the first example I showed you was specific to Giving Tuesday, The second example I showed you was a year-end campaign with Giving Tuesday appeals via email. And then the third campaign here is actually, they just utilize the same campaign, but flip some imagery and content, which, sorry about that. If you don't have a fully staffed team, if maybe you're a team of one, this is a really easy way to take advantage of both Giving Tuesday and year-end giving with the same campaign. The nice thing about this too is if you're utilizing your campaign in digital promotional strategies, people might find that page after Giving Tuesday and give, right? If you cut it down, or if you shut it down, or kind of stop promoting after Giving Tuesday, maybe they won't give again after Giving Tuesday. So tying people back to that same page is a really great way to create consistency. So you can see here on the left, the basic things that they did were change out their hero image. So you can see the difference between their Giving Tuesday image and then their year-end image. Not super big of a difference. It's an image in the background and some text over top. So super easy. And then they changed some content throughout their campaign page, but a fairly low lift on their end. And then on the right-hand side, just a quote from their digital fundraising operations specialist saying that if you can prepare in advance and you have what you need to make that flip after Giving Tuesday, it's super easy to be able to do that. And I just wanted to share that you don't have to change everything on your page. So these are those impact blocks. They use the same impact blocks on Giving Tuesday and year-end giving, because essentially the impact is the same. So you don't have to necessarily think about rebranding your entire page. Just think about maybe your hero image and some content throughout the page. And that's it. And they were able to exceed their fundraising goal by 40% by utilizing the same campaign for both. So this goes to show this could be a good strategy for you if you're thinking about potentially using the same. And then lastly, before I kick it off to my friends over at Google Ad Grants and Community Boost, is we have some awesome resources for you. There's a URL up top, classy.org/GivingTuesday, specific to Giving Tuesday, but we have blogs as well and a lot of great resources for you guys. So please feel free to take advantage of that. Also year-end fundraising checklists. So we try our best to give you guys tools to be successful. So please go ahead and check that out. So without further ado, I'm gonna kick it over to Shannon and Michael and let them take it from here.
All right, so what I'm going to do today is really zoom into Google Ads specifically as part of an effective year-end giving strategy. And so we're going to focus on, in this section, a couple of different things. One, the opportunity and the benefits for leveraging paid Google accounts to complement your grant strategy, as well as how to create effective Google Ads account structure and compelling ad copy, and how to utilize the insights that you gain to inform your marketing decisions. So we'll go ahead and jump in here. Search is a critical touch point online. In fact, today Google processes 5.6 billion searches each and every day on google.com. It's an astounding number. And beyond that, for the nonprofit sector specifically, we've seen a 23% increase in query demand since 2016. So this really represents a huge and significant opportunity for nonprofits to engage folks where they are in the journey, whether that's looking for information or trying to find resources, or if they're further down the funnel and ready to take a specific action like donating. And we know that search is often the beginning of a donor's journey. People may be researching a specific issue in the news, may learn more about a need and come across your organization, spend some time with your organization, and ultimately lead them to that first step of engagement, which again, might be a petition sign up or getting on your newsletter. Whatever the case may be, we know that people are more and more comfortable these days with supporting causes that they care about online. In fact, last year we saw a 12% increase in online donations, and we know that 60% of Americans have suggested that they actually prefer to give online. So we only expect that trend to continue and to grow. So being there is going to be even more critical.
So I really want to spend some time with you guys today talking about how to amplify the reach and the impact of your Google Grant strategy with a paid account, because there's benefits to using both, and there's specific use cases that I want to share with you. Specifically, and when we think about year-end giving in particular, I think paid accounts play a really important role. So when we think about ad grants, we know that it's a really effective tool for getting your feet wet in digital ads and in search specifically. And we know that paid ads can be a great way to build on the exposure that ad grants delivers. So for instance, for key news cycle or PR mentions or whatever demand spikes are happening in the world, paid ads can really amplify your impact and your exposure. We also know that paid ads can help you nurture and cultivate leads that you can effectively generate through ad grants. Ad grants is fantastic and arguably the sweet spot in terms of lead generation, whether that's capturing emails or newsletter subscriptions, whatever the case may be. But by leveraging a paid account, you can take those leads and remarket to them to sustain the engagement and to ultimately drive them down the funnel toward the specific action that you want them to take, whether that's donating or becoming involved as a volunteer or whatever the case may be. And then lastly, grants is a really important fundraising lever and should be used in your arsenal, but it can't do it all alone. And so we highly recommend leveraging paid accounts to boost the impact of your donation driving and to drive increased retention and repeat revenue and donations. Any questions on that before I continue about the value of paid, and is anybody using a paid account currently in conjunction with their ad grant? You are, and are you, can you share a little bit about how you're using it?
I'm actually here to learn more how to leverage that, because I kind of took over from a consulting firm that we were working with.
Yeah.
So now I'm like kind of taking over that.
Right. So like we said, you know, ad grants is an amazing tool for you know, getting started and acquiring some learnings and some insights. And then paid can be opened up and those insights can be leveraged. And not only are you unlocking more opportunity in terms of reach with paid, but you're unlocking enhanced features and functionality like remarketing, which I mentioned. We also have some other tools that are available in paid. And then beyond that into, you know, display and video. But so key moments, key demand spikes, PR mentions are huge opportunities. Using paid to take those highly competitive and mission critical keywords and put them in a separate bucket in order to give them that extra love and that extra exposure. Again, cultivating the leads that you're generating through grants is another great way. Have you tried remarketing or retargeting through your paid?
Yes.
Yeah. So as we mentioned, you know, a lot of people are highly successful with the ad grant in capturing leads, capturing emails, and cultivating those into donors and providing sustained engagement and support to those folks. So I want to just take a minute to level set, and what we're looking at here is the search engine result page. And I want to make sure everybody understands how and when search ads show up on the page. So what we're looking at here is that the links that are highlighted in green are both paid as well as grants ads, whereas below in the blue is where the organic listings fall. So paid and grants always fall above organic listings. One important distinction here is that in the case where there's an auction and both a paid and an ad grant ad are eligible, a paid ad will always supersede an ad grant ad. So that's just something to be aware of. So I want to spend just a couple minutes talking about why online ads are so effective in getting people to take an action, specifically in our case as we think about the giving season driving donations. And I think there's a couple of key differentiators that I want to call out that set digital marketing and Google Ads specifically apart from traditional marketing. One is that what I mentioned, the tremendous reach, just a vast universe of opportunity with almost 6 billion searches a day. We all use search every single day at every phase of our journey, whether it's the initial stages of research down to converting. The second piece is that it's highly targeted. You can target specific donor segments or constituents as well as drive a more broad-based awareness campaign. It's all entirely within your control. Thirdly, online marketing is highly measurable. As long as you have the appropriate tracking in place, you can see and correlate the impact of your investment directly to your organization and the specific KPIs that you're trying to drive, which makes it unique. And we know that while many traditional marketing channels are highly effective, they're much more challenging to measure. And then lastly, and I think we touched on this in the panel this morning, but online ads, especially search ads, are incredibly responsive. So for those key demand spikes and moments where you want to be there and be visible, creating an online ad and a search ad, a text ad, takes less than a minute. And so we talked about that notion of shell campaigns and setting up these campaigns to be ready for when those moments hit, when you can just flip a switch and be ready to go and get in front of your audience. So account structure is imperative to success. I've been at Google for 18 years now, and I've heard numerous times throughout my years, I just don't think search worked for me. And when I hear that and dig a little deeper, I find out that oftentimes people threw up a haphazard ad and a bucket of keywords and thought that that was going to do the trick. And unfortunately, that's not the case. As we touched on in the panel earlier, in order to reap the rewards, you have to put in the effort. And so a thoughtful campaign structure, it really focuses on your organizational goals and on the specific targets that you're trying to reach, as well as utilizing compelling ad copy and messaging that maps directly to the content that you're able to provide on your website is mission critical. And data suggests that high net worth donors tend to make large donations during the last 5 days of the year for tax purposes. We also know that Giving Tuesday donors are more likely to become recurring donors than those donors that just give in the last 5 days of the year. So therefore, creating campaigns specific to the attributes and the behaviors of those specific segments is really important, especially during this critical window of giving season. So the example that we're looking at here demonstrates this strategy in practice. As you can see, the campaigns are broken out into 3 segments, the first being current supporters, the second prospective supporters, and the third lapsed. And so when we're looking at current supporters, we really recommend leaning into a branded strategy. These are folks that have a personal association or an affinity for your org already, if they're and so they might be further down the funnel. They might be more likely to have a high intent to make a donation. For prospective supporters, we really recommend utilizing mission-oriented or cause keywords to introduce your org for people who are, for instance, looking for how to help hurricane survivors or disaster relief, so that you can again introduce your org and connect them to what you're doing in the space to help. And then lastly, lapsed or recurring supporters. This is an area that can really be achieved through some of the strategies that my friend Michael here is going to talk about outside of Google Grants, both in paid search and beyond in display and video, etc. So now let's talk just a bit about creating effective ads. So creating ads and messaging that is specific, relevant, and empowering is really important in driving the behaviors that you want to see. And so I'm going to take a couple of minutes to just talk through these best practices. But one call out here to note is that the number one reason people give is because they do have some sort of personal connection or positive association with a cause or with an org. And the number one reason that donors do not give is because they're not aware of or they're not understanding really the impact that they're having through their donation on the organization or the cause. So with those thoughts in mind, I just want to talk through keywords in your ad titles. And this is a big one. So instead of using some boilerplate stamp message, incorporate the person's language that they're using in their search, especially for prospective donors who want to feel like they're engaging with people who understand what they're talking about. The second is using relevant landing pages. Please don't send people to your homepage. Send them directly to the donation page or to the specific page that connects them to their intent. So if they're looking for more information or resources, send them to a page that provides that content. Test one concept at a time. So build on what you know works. And we've touched on this a bit, but really there's no reason not to test multiple ads in each ad group with different custom messaging to see what's really generating results for your organization. Ad extensions is another big one. Does everybody use ad extensions? Okay, so ad extensions is a wonderful opportunity to gain more real estate in the ad and to be able to provide additional information about your cause and to connect to the people who are looking for you. That can be location information, it can be a click to call button, whatever the case may be. Take advantage of that opportunity to give more to people. We routinely see click-through rates and performance with utilizing the ad extensions considerably higher. So it's a win-win situation. Tailor the message by audience. So I touched on this in the campaign structure, but tailor donor-centric keywords and ads within an ad group to capture desired donor segment. And the ad text should be focused on how that donation will make an impact. Tell them what their donation is going to do or what their involvement is going to contribute to. And last but not least, and this might seem obvious, but it's so important, use a call to deeper into some of these year-end strategies. There you go, Mike.
Give it up for Shannon, you guys. Wow. Literally coughing the entire time before she got up here. Didn't cough one. There she goes. Not even on stage once. Rocked the oversized green shirt. That was impressive. Everybody, I'm the last speaker today before we jump into one-on-one sessions. So please drink another shot of coffee. Send that last email so you can be extra present here, and let's dive into it. So today we've talked a lot about search, right? And search is obviously extremely powerful. You're able to meet people where their attention is at when they're looking for something very specific. There's so much inherent power in that. But I do want to talk to you about some other things that you unlock. I see that yawn right there. That was a big one. That unlocks when you are in a paid Google Ads environment. So inside of a paid Google Ads account, many of you may know, you unlock the ability to do display and video marketing. In the space that we're in, the nonprofit space, plain text ads have a lot of power, again, because of that intent, but there's nothing that really beats the power of a powerful image or a strong video. And especially if your nonprofit is already investing resources, time, energy to creating these kinds of assets, it makes so much sense to leverage these platforms to get additional reach and impact out of them. And so, yeah, like I mentioned, paid Google Ads unlocks the ability to use these different channels. On the display side, so if you guys aren't familiar, a display ad is that example that you see up there on the top right. Google has this really cool dynamic display platform that allows you to plug in up to 5 different headlines, up to 5 different descriptions, and then I think up to 15 different images. and then it will automatically combine those in all the different formats possible. So it's like 5 times 5 times 15, whatever that math is how many iterations of your display ad are possible to be out there, and it'll format them into every possible slot on different websites that are relevant. And you can tell Google like, hey, only show this on websites similar to these, so you know it's reaching the right people. And then the other cool piece of that is you can leverage insights from your display advertising across your other marketing channels. So if you're doing email marketing, which I assume many people here are, what is the best headline that you'd want to send out prior to Giving Tuesday or prior to your really big year-end appeal? You can get that data from a display advertising campaign. Google will literally spoon feed you. I should have put a screenshot into this presentation. Like, here's all the headlines you're using, here's all the images you're using, and it literally says low performance, good performance, or best performance next to the things that people are interacting with, clicking on the most, or at least taking the most time to read. So that's really, really valuable. We talked a lot today about remarketing too, right? And we're about to enter into year end, we're about to enter into Giving Tuesday, just the season that's really, for many of us, the most important. And it's loud, right? It's competitive, and there's a lot of nonprofits out there that are vying for limited dollars. And remarketing is maybe the best way to make sure that you stay top of mind while a donor is going through Christmas with their relatives and thinking about giving, but maybe haven't given yet. And not just your nonprofit, but especially your specific campaign that you're running during year end. So you can set up very tight-knit audiences, especially if budget is a concern, right? We want to make sure that we're showing these display ads to the most relevant people. Well, you can set up an audience that says, only show a display ad to someone who A, has not donated, B, has been to either our donation page, to our impact page, where maybe we've got a key video that really shares important things about our nonprofit, or to other parts of your site that you deem maybe like deep blog posts or something like that. So they're reaching people that are relevant. And then, like I mentioned, it keeps you top of mind, which I'd say is probably the most important part. Earlier in the panel, they were touching on display really briefly, and they mentioned that you only pay when someone clicks, right? We're used to cost per click, that's a thing here. The cool thing about display is it's like a mobile billboard that follows your potential donors around. And if they don't, like what we see a lot of the time, we'll launch display campaigns for some of our partners, and their direct traffic will go up because people see the display ads. And I bet there's even people in this room, if you've like looked at a vacuum or something like that, and the vacuum ad is following you around the internet, personally, I'm not clicking on you, but I'm gonna go buy the vacuum anyways. So the advertiser doesn't get charged, or you won't get charged, but you will get a lot of other traffic coming back to your site. You stay extremely top of mind. So just a little statistic from one of the campaigns that we ran last year. We generated over 880,000 impressions for this specific campaign. It was called A Promise to the Future for this partner of ours. 10,000 people, this was majority remarketing, clicked back and came through to the site again for $750. So that was on average 8 cents to bring a user back to the site. This was real money. Who were already aware of the nonprofit. That's a steal. That kind of coverage for that money is wild. So we don't go as deep into landing pages here. This is a lot on traffic and conversions today, but we have to talk briefly about the landing page experience because it is so vital to the success of your campaigns. So Shannon was just mentioning, thinking through what is someone searching for and where are we leading them to on your website. If someone is searching for something that's donation related, or you've got a display or video ad out there that is making a direct appeal for donations, send them to a mobile optimized, beautiful donation page. Like Classy, there probably isn't an easier one to set up than a Classy page. But other searches that are mission aligned, but might not have that intent to donate right away, send them through to a campaign landing page that talks about a variety of different things. So we could literally have an entire hour just on a high quality campaign landing page, but really quickly, try to put yourself in the potential donor's shoes and imagine that they know very little to nothing about your nonprofit and potentially very little to nothing about the problem that you're solving. So make sure that your campaign landing page is holistic and that it has information about the problem, maybe even a little bit of a history of how that problem became a thing, how you specifically are solving it, your approach to the solution, and then build some credibility for yourself, right? Like not just saying how long you've been around, but since the time you've been around, what's moved because of your organization? Maybe you have some testimonials in there from recurring donors who support you and really love you. And then you also want to make sure that you have Katie was showing some really great examples of Classy campaigns where the call to action is very visible and clear above the fold, meaning you don't have to scroll to see what the campaign is asking you to do, either on mobile or on desktop. Make sure that that donate button or whatever the call to action is contrasts against the page. So hope you connect with the potential designer on your team for that one. And then we like to place multiple calls to action throughout a campaign landing page. So it's like you'll have one above the fold, maybe then you get a little bit into the problem, and then the next section of the page you start to talk about your solution, and then another break, call to action. Are you ready to give, like, let's get involved, let's, whatever it is. Maybe you start to build some credibility, and then one final appeal. So maybe you have up to 3 to 4 places where you're making that same call to action on a given landing page. One thing that's really cool Google offers is, you might want to write this down, testmysite.thinkwithgoogle.com. You can test the speed, the responsiveness, and a lot of other factors of your mobile landing pages. A vast majority of traffic is going to be coming through to your pages on mobile this year end, and so you want to make sure that they're ready. And then we touched on this earlier, I think it was on the panel, we were talking a little bit about these A/B testing platforms that are out there. But even if you're on WordPress or you're not able to get into something like ClickFunnels or Unbounce where you're having a little bit more control over your landing pages, we all invest so much into the deliberation of what should the headline of our main campaign landing page be? What should the hero image of the main campaign landing page be? And it's all a little bit subjective, right? It's all what we think through our own filter. Well, if you're A/B testing, you're letting people vote with their clicks, and you're letting your constituents vote with their dollars, which they actually prefer. And then we think back to the display conversation we were just having. You could maybe take 2 of the top performing headlines from your display campaign that you invested a very small amount into, and then have those 2 headlines be the A/B test of your main campaign landing page. And then we talked about mobile. I don't need to beat a dead horse, everyone in this room knows it, but just some kind of interesting statistics. By 2020, there's going to be over 6 billion smartphones connected to the internet. I'm sure the Googlers probably have like 5 or 6 smartphones, so they're really adding to that statistic. And then millennials, this is wild. Millennials, on average, check their phones over 300 times a day, so I should probably be like checking my phone during this speech to make sure I'm staying consistent with that statistic too. But it just goes to show that like really everyone is online on mobile, and we're like glued to our phones. So we've talked a lot about conversion tracking today as well, and there's a lot of reasons why using Google Analytics is extremely vital to understanding how people are interacting with your website. So we'll talk a bit about that, but you have to be measuring the actual success of your marketing campaigns in terms of dollars, in terms of volunteer forms filled out, even in terms of email subscribers. So answering some key questions like what content resonates most with people when they find our site. And that's not just what landing page are we directing people to, that's once they get to our site, what pages are they traversing to on their own and spending time on? And maybe thinking about directing future users to those pages instead, because, yeah, perfect. And then similar question, like what do people like reading on my site? So what are the pages people are spending the most time on? And then why, right? And trying to generate more of those results. How many people are returning to donate from the remarketing campaigns that we're running? AKA, how successful are those remarketing campaigns? How long does it take people to donate? How do we reduce that lead time from 12, 13 interactions of someone visiting the site down to the golden 7 number or even below that? And the last piece here is when you set up conversion tracking through analytics, it's a very easy 1 to 2 click step to import those goals into your Google Ad Grant account, which then enables you to use a smart bidding strategy called Maximize Conversions. And Maximize Conversions just became, in the grand scheme of things, from how long Ad Grants has been around to this being available, it's still somewhat new. Came out in the beginning of 2018, actually January 1st, it was available. And it allows Google's algorithm to look and say, okay, it is likely that based on past conversion activity, it is likely that this person who's searching will take one of your main conversion actions, sign up to become a volunteer, join your mailing list, or ideally donate. And it will actually allow you to bid above the traditional $2 bid cap that sometimes does place restrictions on how we're able to reach people. So we aren't able to control that bid. We're not able to say, okay, bid up to $16 if someone's searching donate to an environmental focused nonprofit. Google's algorithm decides that for us, but I can confidently say that pretty much all of the partners that at least I'm involved with at Community Boost, on average, their account level cost per click is somewhere between $3 to $4 because we're implementing maximized conversions at scale because we're doing conversion tracking. The other thing that's really important to note too is maybe you've got some level of conversion tracking set up and you're able to see, cool, a donation happened here, donation happened there, but are you also tracking the revenue of those gifts into the platform itself? So you're able to really understand the return on investment and even the return on ad spend of your campaigns. The beautiful thing about maximized conversion bidding is it doesn't just optimize to get you more of the conversions. If you are measuring the dynamic value of those gifts, it will optimize to get you more value in addition to getting more just overall absolute number of gifts. Does that make sense? Some nods? Okay. Yeah, let's see anything else here. Set it up so that you can do maximized conversions. Really important. And okay, so just gonna kind of like cover a few things real quick to summarize before we get into a little bit of case studies and then Q&A. So make sure you're always putting yourself into the user's shoes, thinking about how they would realistically be searching for something. We sometimes get behind our own block and maybe like oversimplify things at times. Like for example, Giving Tuesday is about to come up. People probably aren't searching Giving Tuesday donate, right? Like the Giving Tuesday is a day and it's happening, but people probably aren't searching donate for Giving Tuesday, right? They most likely have a kind of nonprofit or a type of charity in mind that they're looking to give to. We had the pleasure of working with Charity Navigator 2 years ago and got to see at scale, like how are people searching to give in this space? And they're searching for things like best environmental focused nonprofit or top disaster relief nonprofit to donate to. And for you guys with your keywords, especially in your ad grant account or if you're going to test a paid search account at year end, iterate on the ways to say nonprofit. Things like nonprofit, organization, charity, words like best rated, top, even local, right? Like local X type of charity nonprofit to donate to. Those are all keywords that you absolutely want in your ad grant account for sure, and then probably have a home to test inside of a paid search account as well. Donation focused ad copy, of course, if somebody is searching with that kind of intent, you want to make sure that you're speaking to that intent in your ad copy. That goes across the board for whatever people are searching. Shannon mentioned this. You try to most accurately represent what they're searching for in the copy of your search ads. Tight tracking, hopefully you walk away really seeing and understanding the value of how important tracking the goals on your site are and bringing them back into the platforms, not just so that you can better report on how things are really going, but so you can take advantage of some of these other tools that Google's made available. Like maximize conversions and maximize conversion value bidding, put their years and years of research into machine learning and AI to work for your own nonprofit. It does take the upfront work of getting those conversions tracked, something that we're more than happy to look at with you today in the one-on-one session. Honestly, you guys, if you're gonna do a one-on-one session and you don't have conversion tracking set up, I highly recommend using either Community Boost or Google Team Time to dig into that first before even really looking too much into the traffic in your ad grant. Display remarketing is a crazy tool, like you saw. I mean, I don't know if you guys felt that. Maybe I'm so in the world of digital marketing that 880,000 impressions of a campaign, 10,000 clicks for $750 is, for a warm audience, is wild. Test it this year end if you have the ability to. And remember that it gives you insights that you can use for your other marketing channels based on imagery and headlines that you want to test. And if you have video, right? Video can be a little bit more expensive to produce and to do it well, but if you've invested in it, it's a few clicks to set up some YouTube pre-roll that again is based off of what people are searching for, like what they're already showing an affinity for. The cool thing about video is it's similar to the other channels that we're used to where you don't pay unless someone actually watches the video. So if they skip it, like I'm guilty, I skip most video ads on YouTube before my videos come up, but they're not, you are not charged if they don't watch it. And then, yeah, you definitely want to, as often as possible, supercharge your search success by opening up a paid account during key times during the year. So the ad grant is an amazing sandbox that allows you to, without much risk, test different theories about what people might be searching for to connect with your nonprofit. And if you're doing tracking, you know for sure that certain keywords generate revenue for you. Bring those keywords into a paid account during key times of the year, like year end, when there's just the culture of this, specifically this country, is much more focused on giving. So just real quick, how are we doing on time? No? Good-ish, good-ish, okay, take it. Taking a quick look into some success stories. So we talked about the Trevor Project a little bit earlier. Just to refresh on some of those numbers, we, from the ad grant, late in November, spent about 12,000, so 11,800 to drive 8,000 people through to the site, who 310 of those did give, for about 66,000 in online revenue. And just taking a look inside of that, under the hood, at what was the targeting like. The ad grant was a huge channel for Trevor Project, and especially with their brand name. And what's great about branded searches, even though of course it's likely that those people would have found you anyways, having that space protected at the top of Google means that if they click, you can direct them to the experience you want them to have on your website. So maybe that is sending them through to, in this case it was to a Classy donation page, which looks amazing on mobile. We know they're gonna have a great experience. But make sure that your branded campaigns are set up for those who are looking to connect with you so they can have the best experience before they give to you on your site. And then in this case, we saw a lot of gifts come in from things like LGBT suicide prevention, gay suicide prevention. This one really gets me, honestly, because people who are searching LGBT suicide helpline were likely looking for that helpline either for themselves or for a loved one, and then got enough value out of working with the Trevor Project that they chose to give afterwards. So, never forget that if you're a nonprofit who's has beneficiaries that also have potentially the ability to give, that can be a short turnaround conversation for them too, especially at a time like year end, and especially if you're doing remarketing. And then just to give another example, so we also worked with the Clinton Foundation last year, and on the ad grants front, so this is during December, we spent about 6,500 of the grant to send about 2,000 people through to the site. And in total, from what we were able to measure from a direct perspective, so people that clicked on ads and then basically immediately donated, not taking into account at all the awareness that the 2,000 users coming through to the site generated, and kind of the multi-channel approach that we were running, and likely how much else came in that we weren't able to directly attribute. But aside from that, generated about 5,200 in gifts. And then on the paid Google Ads front, we keep mentioning this, but the ad grant really is a place where you can test things. And you can prove, hey, if we're able to get a 20% conversion rate, so 1 out of every 5 people gives, when they search for something like this and they come through to our website, you can do some pretty simple napkin math to prove that, hey, it makes sense for us to invest in paid search. So that's exactly what we did here. Spent about 1,200. Again, roughly 1,128 people through the site, but brought in, significant return on investment for about 11,000. So not necessarily the largest in terms of ad spend or anything like that, but just wanted to paint a picture of how you can use ad grants as kind of a lead to better understand where your money could best be invested in terms of paid search, even if you're only capable of running a relatively small test for your organization this year end. And then, so just looking at some key takeaways, utilizing the ad grant to target both branded and traffic that's mission aligned on, on topic for your nonprofit. You can actually, especially if your ad grant is at the 10,000 level, so you've found ways to maximize how much money is being spent from the grant, you can start to do demographic bidding in your ad grant. So you can actually say, taking a look at the data, either in analytics, or you can actually look at this data inside the grant as well. We noticed that men who are under 30 and whatever the demographics are, typically don't give. So our ad grant dollars go to these people. They're searching the same things, but they're just not giving, you can actually exclude certain demographics from within your ad grant account, which is something that I found even just in that last session that a lot of people weren't aware of. So I want to make sure that you know that. Again, that becomes more and more relevant if you're at that cap of the 10,000 of the grant. You remarket to drive conversions until the end of the year, you guys. And honestly, this says until 12/31, but we saw last year that even some gifts trickling in on January 2nd, January 3rd. So if you're seeing success from those remarketing campaigns, leave them on a few extra days into January. One thing to note, Giving Tuesday was the second, so looking across the board from our like master kind of client area that we have, Giving Tuesday was the second highest day in terms of revenue for across the board for our partners. December 31st was by far the highest day. So going into that, if you do have a limited budget, increase your paid ad budget incrementally on December 29th, December 30th, and then end it on December 31st with the highest amount of budget. That could vary depending on some factors for your nonprofit, but I feel pretty confident saying that across the board for you guys. And then just want to reiterate, we're here today to dig directly into things with you. And if for whatever reason time runs out, like please visit communityboost.org/sf-event, and we will follow up with that one-to-one audit. You guys are all doing incredible things. You're choosing to be here on a Thursday afternoon, probably like letting work pile up in the background because you're committed to something bigger than yourself. And that's really amazing. We want to honor that. And then also make sure that you sign up to connect with the Classy team. If you guys aren't familiar with the Classy fundraising suite, it's incredible. As an agency, it's one of our favorite things ever when we find out a nonprofit we're about to work with is on Classy. It just makes everything so much easier and more effective. And then Cam, do we have time for questions? Just break out?
No, we're gonna yeah. Let's go ahead and you guys want to demo or?
Thanks, guys.